So in here, the very first thing I'm going to discuss is the file, because that is the starting point. So we know what a file is. Let's see what a file is. And we can say it's a collection of information. So we can say it's a collection of information. Right? It records data in a computer storage device. So in a storage device, we are going to keep a file. Okay, so there are two views of files. So the first one we call logical view, or this is also called programmer's view. How programmer, somebody who's going to write code to access files, how the user sees the file. So it could be a collection of records in a database, or it could be pixels in an image. So image consists of pixels. Or even you can see it as a sequence of bytes. We know that in the file we have a bits, then we have bytes. So you can see the file as a sequence of bits. Then the next one we call physical view. So in physical view, this is called, how operating system sees it. Right? That means how actually the data is stored in the secondary storage. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි hard disk එක ගත්තොත් hard disk එකේ කොහොමද තියෙන්නේ කියන එක තව view එකක් විදිහට අපි ගන්න. එහෙනම් මතක තියාගන්න පොතේ අපිට මේ files කියන ඒවා ක්‍රම දෙකකට බලන්න පුළුවන්. There are two versions of views of files. The first one we says logical view. The logical view means how programmer views the file. The second one is how operating system views the file, right? So those are the mainly two views of the files. How programmer sees the files and how operating system sees the file. So in this part, we are going to discuss file attributes. Now, file attributes means there are different information we are keep with the file. So each file, you have a various information. Now, for example, file name. So in file name, we used to uniquely identify the file in the file system. There are several other things that we need to discuss. So let's discuss one at a time. The second one is a file type. You all know that any file, there's a file type. What kind of a type is? Now, for example, it could be a Word file. It could be, this should be, right? It could be, a video file. So everyone, you have what we call file type. Now, file type, we use to identify different types, different contents. As I told you earlier, it could be executable file, it could be a text file, it could be an image file, it could be a video file, and so on. The next one is the creator. normally somebody will create. Now, if you draw a picture, if you save it, your name is also saved in the file. Your name is also saved in the file. So this is known as creator. So you are the creator of the file, or you can say owner of the file. Now, apart from file name, file type, who created the file, there are other information we keep. Now, for example, where you are going to store the file. This is called location, whether you are going to store in C drive, whether you are going to keep it in the desktop, that information is kept in location attribute. Then the next one is called file organization. Now, file organization we will discuss again in detail later on, but for the time being, how exactly these records are put? Are they put in one after the other? We call sequential way, right? So this is called file log, how files are organized, right? This is called file organized. So some files keep records one after the other. We call sequential. Some files record information here and there. We call random. Or there is a predefined way of keeping the record. We call indexed, right? So that file attribute is known as file organization. And another piece of information is called user, who are permitted to use the file. Not everyone can access your files, right? There are some restrictions. So who are the users? Whether all the users can access it, whether only administrators can access it. So this piece of information we kept with the file attribute users. So these are the another three attributes. Let's look at the last three attributes, again very important. Now, when you created a file, you can decide who can, modify this file, right? Who can read this file? Who can write? Who can delete this file? This is called access permission. So access permission means depend on how you provide the permission, right? This determine whether a particular person can read the file, modify the file, write the file, or delete the file. This is called access permission. Then another interesting piece of information that we normally keep is date and time. Whenever you create a file, we keep the creation date. Whenever we edit the file, we keep the date and time of the modification of the time. Even when you delete also, we are going to keep that information. Final one is called file size, right? So what is the size of the file? That is another attribute we will keep. This is called file size. So when you say file size, there are two things which we will discuss again later on. Actual file size. What do you mean by actual file size? Let's say you are going to, store, let's say 100 bytes. But then again, when you want to store, there are fixed size in the storage. Like, let's say 30. That means although you have 100, the storage is divided as 30 blocks, 30 blocks, which means you need 4 blocks to keep 100, which means you need 120. So when you open up a file, you see two file sizes. When you click, file properties, there's a place where we say what is actual size, what is size of the storage. This is called file size. Since we know the file attributes, the next one we are going to talk about file types. So usually to identify the content, we use different extension. We call file extension. So for example, for graphic files, we have a separate set of extensions. For each, you have uniquely identify a particular type, right? Now, when you take image files, for example, we have a set of files which we call PNGs, JPGs, right? Animation ones we call GIFs, and so on, right? Different file types. Okay, let's take down this. So let's see some of the commonly used file extensions. So for example, executable files in Windows applications, usually we will end with exe files. When you take text files, Word file, for example, we have docx, doc, rtf, txt, and so on. And for example, when it comes to OpenOffice, it has a different set of extensions. For example, here we can say ODT if you want. We will say dot ODT. That ODT means open document text. So we can have image files, JPG, JPG, PNG, GIF, TIFF, right? I will put that TIFF here. Dot DIFF TIFF. We can even have Photoshop file, PSD. These are some of the commonly used ones. Then we have video extensions, right? We will have WOB, FLV, SWF, AIA, right? MP4. So there are many. Or MKV, let me put MKV as well. Comma dot MKV. And even WebM. WebM. So there are many others like this. Then we have audio files. We have MP3, WAV, WAV. Then we can have .AAC. .FLAC. These are some of the type. Then we have compressed files. Compress means you reduce the size, right? We will have commonly used ones is zip and RAR. These are like two extensions we use. Right? So let's write down a subtopic. So in this topic, we are going to talk about how the directories are structured and how files are organized, how we can keep the file. So that's the topic that we are going to discuss. So when you talk about the directory, now usually we call directory we use to organize files. Whenever, for example, when you have image files, we put it to a different directory, isn't it? We keep it in a directory. So we can say the directory is used to organize the files in a logical manner, right? Directory is used to store, right, the file in logical manner. So why we say logically? Because actually it might be slightly different, like how you store files in the hard disk. But we can say logically, we can put into different folders.